that makes it slightly clearer for you. Not sure it makes it any clearer for me. I'm trying to keep up. It's hard. We are Lisa and Tim of Old Rope Salvage, and we currently live in a caravan in Cornwall in the UK. 2 years ago we bought this 1975 Bedford Firetruck with the intention of restoring the vehicle and building it into an epic off-grid rolling home on wheels for us to live and travel in. Whoa! I nearly crashed into him there. Well, 2 years of sanding, grinding, welding, powder coating, painting and plating later, and we are sort of moving into what we hope will be the final stages of the restoration phase. It's been a long haul with a few setbacks along the way, like having to move into a caravan, thanks evil landlord, but we are still enjoying ourselves.
Oh, load of rubbish.
Mostly.
Get my engine on the phone.
And this week we are working on restoring the transfer box
I need to get the manual.
and the main air tank.
Looks like I'm working on the big air tank.
Getting back into summer mode with some sandblasting and painting, and trying to figure out where we are and just how much we've got left to do.
Species die, no major tones, take us to the moon.
With the weather conditions currently in our favour and the spray booth finally emptied of the detritus from the house eviction saga, Tim was able at last to dust off the spray gun and get painting again. You might be forgiven for mistaking this for the head of Darth Vader or a steampunk robot dog hybrid from the future, but this thing is in fact the transfer box. Not quite as exciting perhaps, but no less important, at least to us.
Lead us with affection. We can go anywhere, do anything, do anything.
Right, back in the tent Monday morning. Tent is filled up with lots of bits and pieces. So I've got the old drive shaft from the rear drive shaft and a steering rod. They've been sitting in primer all winter because I ran out of time to spray them back in last autumn. So they've been painted now. And here we have the transfer case. For anyone who doesn't know, who wants to know. So this little unit goes about halfway down the truck and the engine drives onto one side of it and drives the back wheels. There's a little lever in here which allows the drive to go to the front wheels, hence giving us four-wheel drive. And there's also another lever which reduces the gears to give you a much lower gearing if you're off-road. And I think you can also put a PTO on it. Don't worry about it. So this little unit has been painted as well. Now I didn't want to sandblast this because I didn't want any chance that there's going to be sand going inside, because I'm not dismantling it. I'm just going to leave it how it is. We're putting new oil in it and we're going to see how it goes. But I didn't want any chance of sand, so I've had to mechanically clean it with the angle grinder and a wire wheel and a lot of scraping. It's taken a little while. So all we've got to do now is bolt all the other bits on it that came off it, and we'll put it in the corner somewhere until we need it. Can't actually bolt this back on because the frame holding the chassis up is in the way of where this goes. Looks good. Hopefully it'll all work alright. It worked when it came in here, so hopefully it'll work when it goes out. Nice.
Well, I left Chattanooga, boy, had a dollar and a dime. Headed out for Nashville on the Hard Rock Line. I'm working on that old steamboat and learned to rob and steal. When my feet had touched dry land, how happy I did feel. Been saving everything.
Pretty.
gone this time tomorrow, reckon I don't know where I'll be. But if it wasn't for that old sheriff, I'd be back in Tennessee, playing cards and crap games, not looking for the score. And if I ever get back home.
So this is where the levers connect to select four-wheel drive and high and low ratio. So these have to connect onto the corresponding parts on here now. But that one's slightly offline. I think I've put it the wrong way around. Okay, I'll switch it over. I'm going to check my photos. Ah, I do have a photograph of it, but not with that piece on there. Fortunately, I haven't actually put the pins over yet, so I can just take that out, take that off. Switch around. Oh, it screws on, that's why it was. I get you. Alright. Oh, okay. It's got a lock adjuster knot. Right. I need to get the manual. Right, I'll sort this out in a minute properly so you can get the gist of it. Four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive. You don't get these on modern cars. It's like, I think, I don't know, on my old bicycles they were called cotter pins, but you, so this part goes on as a flat slot on the shaft. This goes through and it stops the piece coming off or rotating on the shaft. It's proper old school. Of course you've got to get that on first. If in doubt, a little bit of lubrication. Oh, that's getting nice actually. Really just a little bit of lubrication and a little bit of got it. Thanks Chris McDonald once again for the spanners.
Been saving every penny for to make up through the fall. Working for that dollar, but it never adds up at all.
I swear I need a manual because I don't know if this comes in from the bottom or the top, or I wonder actually. Let's go all the way over. The top. Ah yes. It doesn't fit. I knew there was somewhere. I knew it. I knew it. That has to go on there before it goes on there. Or I can do it. I can take it off here. Alright. We're nearly there.
Playing cards and crap games, not looking for the score. And if I ever get back home again, I'll never own no more.
I feel like we should have a washer or something on the bottom of that, but there wasn't one, so we're going to put a new pin in that one. But that should be the second rod. So we have one of the levers connects to this one, puts us in two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and the other one connects on this other lever here, which puts us in high and low, high, low and neutral, or PTO. And they all work really nice.
There is one quite exciting thing that's come in the post this week. A few people have asked us about this, saying things like, oh, I don't suppose there's a Haynes manual for that. No, there isn't. For a long time, Tim was like, I can't really get any manuals for it, they're really expensive. It just so happened that this week, he did actually manage to get his hands on a manual. And it's like a proper thing. All the way from the 1970s, service training manual. This cost, I think, about a tenner off of eBay, and I think it's one of a set of about 5. This one's for the front axle and steering, chassis frame and suspension, wheels and tyres, brakes. We'll hopefully have all those working perfectly thanks to this handy manual. Tim was very excited about this the other night. He was sitting in the caravan going, oh, I wish I'd had this when I did that, and this would have come in handy when I'd been taking that apart. So I guess even if you're a man or a woman who doesn't like reading the instructions, probably quite helpful if you have some. Probably going to be using this quite a lot in the coming weeks, I reckon. Has it got a good story?
Looks like I'm working on the big air tank.
There comes a point in every man's life when, no matter how hard you try to put off the inevitable, you eventually have no choice but to throw on a snazzy hat and get back to the grind. We'd been putting off restarting the grinding and the sandblasting of the big heavy metal parts, mostly because no matter what you do to try and prevent it, it always creates such an epic mess. But also, well, it's just really hard work, and we are tired. But you know, we are getting through it. Bit by bit, it's getting done. And one day it will be finished. One day. So the blackboard, the chassis blackboard. Now I started making this as a tool for myself mostly to try and keep track of and make sense of the chassis project, which I find hideously complicated, and then to try and pass that on to you lot about where we are actually up to. As it is, it's actually become a bit of a beast and I'm kind of more lost than ever. But I've been trying to catch up with it today and just figure out where we are and what we've got left to do. So, well, with the axles, which both really big things in themselves, the rear axle is, to all intents and purposes, done. And that includes the drive shafts and all the braking plates and everything else. There's a couple of things left to do on it. There's the brake drums and the wheel cylinders, but it's, you know, you've seen it, it looks great. The front axle is a little bit of a different story. That's still in its original state, so that is one of the big things that is left to do. And from those with the leaf springs, well, on the front axle, one of the leaf springs is completely done and half of the other one is done. And the leaf springs on the rear axle, they both need to be done as well. So that is like one of the front axle and the leaf springs, that is still one of the main lot of things that needs to be done. The transfer box, which you will have already seen Tim painting and putting back together, that was actually all just finished this morning, so that was a big tick for the transfer box. We've got the clutch system, which is all well underway. Steering box, all looking good. Petrol tank is done. Small air tank on the front is done. We've got various things like all the pedals and the levers, they're all done. And the braking system's got a few ticks next to it, the booster cylinder, the small air tank, I think I just mentioned that. And the main tank hangers, they're done as well. The rear tow hitch, which is just over there, that's done. And a million other tiny, little, big, small, medium things, all done. So yeah, what is left to do? Well, the things I just mentioned, the leaf springs and the rear axle, they shouldn't take too long to do once they're underway. The big things, I suppose the elephant in the room that we haven't really talked about yet, and I'm still not going to talk about it today, is the engine. When we come to tackling that, we will obviously be talking about that a lot, and I think that's going to be a little bit further down the line yet, because it's, you know, the engine's actually fine. We could put it back in, start it up, it would all run, but whether or not we're going to keep that engine or modify that engine, that is for a later date. And the same goes actually for the gearbox, because it's all to do with the old fire engine and how it's all put together and the whole system. We are looking at changing it. That's a whole other conversation again. Again, it can all be put back together as it is and the whole thing will be run. We could build the whole camper on the back of it and still change all of that like right at the end, or 5 years down the line. Hopefully we'll be finished by then. So we're not kind of losing any sleep over that, but we will talk about that when we come to putting those things back in or not, or what we do with them when we get to them. So I think that's kind of where we are. I hope that makes it slightly clearer for you. Not sure it makes it any clearer for me, but you know, I'm trying to keep up. It's hard.
I don't need a blackboard up here. If I see something that's dirty and rusty, I clean it up and fix it. And as the pile of dirty things goes down, we're getting closer to getting it finished.
I'm just trying to keep them informed.
Yeah, I know. Right, first time I've sandblasted anything in, feels like months now, because we've been having some problems with the compressor, and there's nothing worse than doing a job like this and it's really slow. Now, it is really slow, but oh, it's just so good. Because we're having problems, I went over this first with a grinder and a poly disc and took off the worst of it. But this is a really good kind of example of what you get. This side here has been cleaned up quite a bit with the poly disc, with the wire wheel on the angle grinder. It could be sanded down a little bit more, but it's not far off what you'd end up painting over if you were doing this without the sandblasting. But when you sandblast it, it gets rid of everything. It gets rid of everything and it leaves this really good key for the paint to stick to. It gets in right inside all the threads. Oh, we've got sand inside the tank yet, but it gets right inside the threads, cleans them right up, and yeah, it's kind of a really good example there of the difference and why we've been sandblasting a lot of stuff. So yeah, half down, another half, and then this is going to get put into paint. Did think about powder coating it, but I haven't got a nice colour powder coat, and it's getting a little bit big for the oven, so I think we're just going to paint this one. Yeah. I'm going to take this tank off. This pole, you're going to slide into this pole.
Okay.
Right, and then you've got two handles here. You turn them both clockwise, and you turn them until that gets clamped into there.
Okay.
And that might be a bit better for us.
Should I come in this side then?
Yeah. So I lift this off. You sit back.
I got it. You got it. Take this random screwdriver.
I don't know if it'll help, it just stops bending a little bit, maybe. Might still bend too much.
Country songs and whiskey sighs can cheer up any man who's feeling down. We say Jesus ain't an easy man to talk to.
Oh, look at that, solid. Solid.
Heaven there's a sound at all that
You can do it.
night.
You can do it. Have you seen your muscles?
Alright, still not perfect, but I think that's much better.
You're alright.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
I think that's much better. Right.
Right.
Oh, it's
It's
right.
definitely lunchtime now.
Alright. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, it's like leave that there
I don't want to spray it. Everything's gonna get painted.
though, including the sands.
Yeah.
Well, it may be a little unconventional, but it got the job done. In fact, the accidental spinny mechanism got the job done better than we might have anticipated. Tim was able to get the primer and then the top coat, Old English white to match the cab roof. I bet you weren't expecting that. All done within a couple of hours. And a couple of days later, in the last good drying days of June before the weather inevitably changed, the air tank was ready to bolt back into place on the chassis.
But I feel a little better singing, drinking songs together. A little 16 bars of paradise. Now you make some big mistakes over a lifetime. And heaven knows there ain't no perfect man. Sometimes it's just too late for forgiveness. But everybody here knows that you're doing the best you can. Well, life is tough, you done had enough, you ain't got no cash to spend. Come on down to Buddy's Bar, it's on the house, my friend. We say Jesus ain't an easy man to talk to. Heaven never sounded all that night, but to feel a little better singing, drinking songs together. A little 16 bars of paradise.
Very nice.
Well, I guess that's it for this week.
So we managed to sort of tick off a few more of the rusty parts sitting on the floor there. So transfer case is done, and the air
Still
tank
looks like
here.
Darth Vader's head to me, but
Yeah, it's getting there. We're getting on. We're back in the workshop. We're plodding along, getting these projects, getting all these bits done, and every day we're getting a little bit closer to finishing all this off.
yeah, the sandblasting of the leaf springs and the front axle, which is still waiting to happen because the weather has actually turned a little bit rubbish here at the beginning of July as it is now, but we're hoping to kind of get on with that imminently.
I was raring to get on with some more sandblasting, and as soon as I did that, it's just been raining. I think it's Wimbledon, so it's
Oh, yeah.
Wimbledon's fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, having to do some other sort of bit side projects, really, doing the quarter lights for the doors, trying to set them up ready so that we can try and assemble them. We have rainy day jobs and nice day jobs.
Tim's working on my car door over there on the big workbench at the moment. That's quite exciting in a way because I suppose it's getting down to details and opens up a little bit more of a creative thing with things like the door cards and stuff like that again. So kind of looking forward to moving into doing things like that soon. So yeah, I guess we'll be back again probably in another 2 or 3 weeks. So there's a little bit of a longer gap between videos still at the moment. That's really just because we've got so much on. So they're just coming as and when, but you know, we are doing our best to keep the videos coming because we enjoy putting them out and sharing them with you. So So yeah, back again in another 2 or 3 weeks hopefully, and the next video will be what it will be really, depending on the weather, I reckon.
Yes, they make themselves up as they go along.
Yeah.
I have no control.
Yeah,
thanks for watching.
Yeah.
I hope that was semi-enjoyable for you. I hope the blackboard here makes some sense of what's happening. Doesn't to me, but you know, maybe it helps. Thanks for everyone who leaves the comments and everything. Yeah, we had a couple of really nice comments, one particular this week. Yeah,
it touched our hearts quite a lot actually, so yeah, we really do enjoy reading your comments, and it means a great deal to us actually. It gives us great motivation. Yeah,
so thanks very much for that, and tune in next time to another thrilling episode of Old Rope Salvage. Reassemble an old truck and turn it into an off-grid home on of our dreams.
I bet you can't wait.
See you next time. Bye. Grid home on.
Off-grid rolling home on wheels of our dreams.
I'm happy with the simple life.